hello to Glitch Tech Tuesdays. Glitch 2600 Tech Tuesdays. I am Glitch, also known as Brian, whichever way you want to call me. And this is your time to ask your tech questions and get them answered live on the air. You can also come to our page, post your questions anytime. We'll still try to work them in. Best if you are live, put a Q in front so we can see it a little bit faster. Otherwise, you can post your questions anytime and we'll come back through and try to catch it on a video. And if we know it's you, we'll try to tag you and let you know, either offline or whichever way you prefer to know that we've answered your question. Now, we can talk anything from computers to physics to, chemistry. I'll get the right people, to drones, videography, photography. I've been a computer guy and geek for my entire life. I'm a professional photographer, videographer, now live streamer, and we're just constantly trying to make all of this better. So I'm happy to help you guys learn, and I'll learn at the same time. That's the one nice thing about teaching and questions is sometimes the teacher or the person you're asking gets more of it sometimes than you do. So you might ask a question that I did not think of on a topic that I probably know an area on, but doesn't hurt to get a little bit more knowledge. At the same time, if I don't know something, I won't mislead you. I'll let you know I don't know what I think might be the answer, and then tell you, come back in a week, 2 weeks, and I'll have the right answer for you. So if you're new, say hi. We'd love to, you don't have to be shy. But, like I said, we're here. We can answer your questions. So this week, for when people don't ask questions, we have, a few questions that kind of came in off air that we can definitely cover and talk about. So this week, I had a question about why between two tablets they couldn't see AirDrop. So on one tablet they had AirDrop, on another they didn't. And it just kept disappearing. So I'm going to show you on an iPad kind of where you want to go and check those settings, and then what are my suggested settings for it. So I'm going to switch over to the iPad. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If we really wanted to, we could be geeky and add me down here to dialogue and talk to you and be a little piece down here in the corner. Why don't we go like that? We'll just float me down here. So when you're on your iPad, iPhone screen, if you slide down from the top corner, you'll get these command boxes. There's a few ways you can do this, but you'll see up here where the area that looks like an airplane, and you'll see that your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, that box, all of these boxes are able to be pressure dropped or pressure push, force push, extend push. So if you press and hold, let's say I press and hold on music, you'll have different options in music where you can AirPlay to different devices. Same thing for your do not disturb. If you press and hold, you can say how long. It has a little bit more options to it than just the screen you see. So if you press and hold up here, you'll see where you have AirDrop. And you can choose receiving off, which is a good security setting. When you're not expecting anything, do that. Or you can switch contacts only, which is one of my preferred ways. And then everyone. Everyone is the most unsecure. It leaves you open all the time. That means you could be at the store, and if someone else has AirDrop, you'll come up. If they want to drop a picture to you, it'll come up and say, hey, do you want to allow it? Normally not a big deal, but let's say your kids have your phone and someone's being inappropriate. I've never seen it, but in bigger cities, you probably will. At those points, it'd pop up and show just a mini preview, and if it's not you at the phone, to say deny, you don't want. So I always keep mine at receiving off or contacts only. The thing with contacts only and receiving off, obviously if receiving's off, you don't show up for them. So if I brought up my phone right now and went into another area, I could show you. And we'll do this. If I bring up my AirDrop, we go into, let's say, a photo, and we'll go grab one of my daughter from a while back. and we go to airdrop her, if I go under airdrop, we will see my iPhone and my laptop. That works because that airdrop feature is on. If I turn around on my iPhone and did what we were talking about where I press and hold, go into airdrop and say receiving off, then what will happen if we go back in here is that you won't see me in there anymore. Now, on my phone, now that I've turned it back on to contacts only, I'm in my contacts. So since I'm signed in on both, I show up there. So going in here under contacts only, that'll work. Now in this case, the person was going between a work iPad and their personal, and they obviously weren't signed in to iCloud on their work one, because I would never suggest that you sign in with your personal IDs on your work ones, because one, it puts all your stuff personally there. You should use a different ID for that. Use your work email and a work, Apple ID. But also people can remotely wipe, and we'll talk about that in a second. But by having that, since in this case, they didn't have their iPad, in their contacts, they didn't have, their work one in there, I suggested temporarily, and I can't emphasize this enough, temporarily to move it to everyone. Because if you're in your home and that's all where you're at and you're needing to do that and move between them, that's how you can get yourself to show up. So able to move to everyone and then transfer it and then move it back to contacts only or receiving off. And what's really nice is that's, like I said, once you have it in contacts only, just your friends, people you know in your contact can send it, or you could just, like I said, turn it off. Now, in this case, because it's work and they're pretty good about it, they're going to go one step farther and try to turn off airdrop. And I'm not going to tell you how to circumvent it. There are ways. There's a plethora of ways. Some people will tell you just go download the Dropbox app and do it that way, and it's not really airdrop. You might be able to do it through the iCloud app, future things going on there, the different drives. There are ways to get around, but work has something called, and most works or enterprises have something called MDM, Mobile Device Management. And you can tell if you have it by when you go into your settings, you'll go under General, and over here, right now, this one doesn't have it. If I hook up my phone, we'll see my work where we have it. This iPad's not tied in to work, but my cell phone is. But down here, kind of close to the VPN area, you would see something that says Device Management or Profiles. And when you click into that, you would see your works profile, and then there'll be sections where you'll see restrictions. In that case, they had a restriction that said airdrop off. And airdrop off meant she couldn't turn it on. There wasn't anything they were going to be able to do that way. Now, we came up with a way, because this was, admittedly my mother, and she needed a way to get some photos off of the iPad that were business secrets or anything like that. Because again, the security guy in me would say, I wouldn't ever advocate, taking stuff like that. There's a reason why companies put MDM on their machines. But she needed to get those photos off. They were receipts and stuff that she needed to keep track of. And so in that case, we did figure out a way around and using, couldn't put Dropbox on the machine, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a way to get around that. But the reason I mentioned also MDM is people talk about different parental control apps, and you'll sometimes hear MDM. MDM, I used to use MDM for my kids. It was really great. If they didn't answer, I could make all the apps disappear, and it would just say, they'd have one contact on their phone that said, call dad. That's it. Or I could say, hey, it's dinner time. Close down all the apps, and it would just take them all away. The downside with MDM, when it was done that way, it takes a lot to run it. There's stuff in the cloud. There's different, what they call profile solutions for it. There's a lot of stuff you have to do. Well, that means it was run by another company. I paid a reputable company that used to do it called Intego. I don't know that they do it anymore, but they run something. Oh, hey, I'm going to pop this up. because mom says hi. But the reason we say that, the MDM is a great solution, but I used a reputable company. There's a lot of them out there that aren't for the home use side. Corporate side, yes, but you're not going to go spend, $40,000 on mobile iron or VMware's, AirWatch for home for 5 kids. It's not going to be cost effective. And the ones that were running it sometimes with that MDM, they could wipe your phone. That's the thing about an MDM, and this is also why I say don't put your personal things on a work one, is if you have a new admin, maybe he doesn't know the settings and on accident clicked remote wipe. Well, MDM says, hey, it's our device. It's not really yours. You don't have a right, to 100% privacy. It's the company's. Anything you make on it is the company's, product. We think it might be compromised, and it'll wipe it. And you don't want that. So I never want to be in the spot where I don't have my data. So that's why I say that with MDM. But that was the trick, and that's how you turn on your AirDrop on and off. Is you could do it there. I will show you there's another spot in the same area where you would normally find profiles. If you just go into settings, general, and then you'll see AirDrop up here. It's the third one down. If you click in there, you'll get the same screen that you get when you come down from that right-hand side and force press. Force press just means you press and hold it, much like this. So you'll see me, if I move that back, I just press and hold for a minute, and that's how I do it. If I click off, I go somewhere else. If I press and hold on any number of these, I can get my screen mirroring. What am I going to do with that? So you can see more stuff than what's just there. Additionally, this is your control panel. We'll just give one extra tip inside of a tip. If you scroll down here in your panel, you can go to Control Center. And you'll see you can access them within apps. So you can, like right now I'm in an app, I can pull down from the right. You can also go in and customize some stuff. See, organize things that appear in the control panel. So if I really wanted to, I could add any number of things in the control panel that might be useful. You notice, if I do it right, I come down here, there's these 4 at the bottom. Well, those 4 at the bottom eerily match what's in the 4 at the top. So if I really wanted to, I could put my flashlight in there, or my hearing one, QR code, screen recording. That is extremely useful. I will record my iPad screen, it'll save it to the files, and then I'll show someone. So if someone's asking me, how do I do something? You'll now see down here, once I added it, it's up there. And it's sitting there for me to tap on. And if I were to tap on it, it's not going to let me right now because I'm in a connected session right now. But if I was there, I could record my screen. And that's one way for me to say, hey, click on this menu, go to this menu, go to this menu, and I just send the file. And then you can change the order around. So that's what's nice about that. Your dark mode, different settings, you can add those in there. And that's pretty cool. I mean, there's some new features in iOS 13 too, where you can do this multitasking and different things. If you have a cool iPad like this, you can pull setups and have different things over in the side, see what the weather's like, see shortcuts, change all that, which is a lot of fun too. But hopefully that gives some info, and just a little bit of how to turn on and off AirDrop and control stuff there and what kind of MDM is. Again, if you're new, I've seen a few people drop on and off. Say hi. My mom already said hi. So hi again, Mom. Yes, I told the story a little bit of needing to work on stuff with no names other than the fact I gave up that I was helping you. That's the only name drop I did. Again, I see someone else dropped on. So if you're new on here, say hi. If you have a tech question, geek question in general, if I don't know the answer, I'll help you track it down. We'll catch it for the next one. Love to help you out. But if you're new here, definitely say hi. We don't bite too much. You'll notice I'm going to pop out of this and go back to the larger screen for a second. Tell the lighting setup changed just a tad bit. Soon we'll have softboxes and stuff to make this a little bit better. Playing with the color still in the back. Still working on our set to make things even cooler, but you'll notice that more when we do a virtual happy hour again in the future. Which, as a reminder, if you have not seen or have not liked it already, we do virtual happy hours. Most of the times it's on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Normally a Saturday or Sunday. And that's where we geek out on beer, craft beer, wine, mead, cider, all that fun stuff. That's just our fun time there. You can still ask questions. The longer we are into the happy hours, I'm enjoying and giving info about those beers, the more helpful or more friendly I am, but I might not be as helpful. Who knows? Depends alcohol content. Mead sometimes has 13, 14% alcohol. So we have those. Again, if you get a chance, subscribe to us on YouTube. You get some of the same content. We're making playlists there. You can find, we started doing what we call a glitch bite, and it's where we cover different topics, and it's going to be, you're going to see more of those. Right now it's a gamer series that's League of Legends. My son is covering it. He's an expert. He plays and working through trying to become competitive for it, or he is competitive, but into the pro ranks and all that. He plays for the school. He has, he actually is a very good player, works with a coach. So cover that and learning the parts of League of Legends. And you'll see one episode up there. We had a small glitch with them yesterday, so I'm just editing the video, and you'll see episode 2. Talks a little bit more about it. But those glitch bites will also include stuff like, different settings and stuff I like on the Apple Watch, and we'll deep dive into applications and modifications you might want to make. Maybe the best Wi-Fi. What's a mesh Wi-Fi? What's Wi-Fi 6? Do you need that? Do you have IoT devices? What is IoT? Which is Internet of Things. Your controlled doorbell, cameras in the house, stuff like that. Those are IoT. The more of those you have, the more you might need a different type of wireless. So you'll have those in there. Questions you guys ask that we maybe need to deep dive more than this. That's where we'll have those glitch bites. And eventually we'll have glitch bits. Those are 3 to 5 minute little, I just need to know how to, like we're doing here, how do I turn on AirDrop? 3 to 5 minutes. You'll find that there. So you'll see that on YouTube. We'll start having playlists. You can still see it on Facebook. We're going to start trying to find playlists there, and eventually will be simultaneous. But go ahead and do that. If you want to get really fancy, there's a little QR code right there. If you hold your phone up, one of the things that you might have noticed when I had the menu up is that there was a QR reader. Your smartphones have that built in. If you launch the camera app, hold it over, it'll go and pop up and go, hey, do you want to go to where this QR link is saying? And you go, yes. And that'll take you to YouTube, and you can subscribe. You can ask questions there too. Otherwise, if you're on YouTube watching this, do that in reverse. But don't click that link over here because you're already on YouTube. But follow us on Facebook. You can ask questions there. You can message me. It's Glitch 2600. GLITCH 2600. And one of these times we'll talk about why 2600. That'll be just a fun Easter egg one. Maybe I'll hold out to my next birthday. Maybe it'll be Christmas. Maybe 4th of July. Who knows? The more subscribers we get, the more likely I am to diverge that sooner than later. If you have friends that have computer and tech geek questions, always feel free to invite them. Love to answer all the questions. And really help out. You could pay a tech a bunch of money. I would normally bill out quite expensively because I'm highly certified. Right now I'm free. I just like doing this. I like to play with the equipment. So this is your chance to ask. Pop that off of there. Like I said, over time, we're going to make this better and better. Production value, higher and higher. But also, I'm just going to throw it out there. If you do like our happy hours, you should also catch when we do our Wine Styles West Glen episodes. My friend Brian, Matt, and Sarah, they run one over there. We help run the production. They provide all the entertainment and knowledge, but you can learn a ton about wine, a ton about all sorts of stuff. And Matt and them just have really fun stories. So if you like our happy hours when you watch that, you'll be equally entertained, if not more, going and checking out that one. So, how's everyone doing? Hopefully well. You know, I get it. It's a Tuesday night. If there's times and nights that are better for everyone too, please comment and let us know. If it would be better, we have toyed around with the idea of whether we do 1 or 2 a week, just 1 or 2, or skipping and doing every other. We've also talked about on Sundays just doing a back-to-back and instead doing, hey, it's Tech Sunday. We'll answer your questions, and then an hour or 2 later doing our happy hour after, so you can catch back if you want to. That way, if it fixed the problem or whatever you asked, you can come back and have a drink with us. If it didn't fix the problem, you can ask more info while we're having a drink and talking about the beer we like. So, and if you're new on, welcome. I see a few on there. Say hi if you have those tech questions. Please feel free to pass them through. Any type of geek question. Well, thank you. I'm in dire need of a haircut. So for everyone who said I'm looking okay, I get a haircut on Friday. I don't know which one needs it more because they're almost equal distant length. And the boys need one too. I saw a fun graphic that I should have loaded up and put in here where it has 2 little boys or 2 kids with hair down here covering their face, Cousin It style. And they're walking up to a parent, hair also down, holding the mug. He goes, Mom, we need haircuts. And the caption on it goes, I'm Dad. Which, one, I already say that to the kids a lot as they come up to me and go, Mom. And I have to go, I'm Dad. And then they'll do the same thing the other way around and go, Dad. And then have to correct also. But it was just a fun thing when that popped up. And I saw that, and it just reminded me, I don't need a terrible haircut. I terribly need a haircut. Grammar is very important. So, yeah. So I see we have a couple more people on. If you're new here, please say hi. We'd love to know you're here. If you have tech questions, feel free to ask them. This is your time. I'd love to answer them. It's free for me to answer them. Hopefully someday we get some endorsements. That'll let me, buy some of the cool toys I'm already going to buy, just then not cheaper, or then it will be cheaper. But, and we'll just keep upping the production value. Like I said, we've got a few things coming through. So if you guys don't have questions, I do have more that were submitted to me, so we can talk about those and go a little bit farther. So, like I said, if you have a question, I'll leave it for a second and just see if anyone is typing something. So I don't want to get in the middle of one and find out someone's just typing a novel question. Again, if you do have a question, put a Q in front. That'll just help me find it. Otherwise, if you just post it up, we'll find it anyway. All right. Okay, everyone's good. Looks like. So, again, you can share to your friends if they do have questions. And it doesn't have to be on while we're on live. They can catch this on the replay and still ask their questions after. We'll post it into the next one. Is there a way to check updates? So let's pop that up so people can see what I'm reading. Question, is there a way to check updates? Depends on the type of update we're talking about. Let's go ahead and flip back to the trusty iPad. Unlock it. There are different types of updates. So if we're talking on iPad updates, if you go into General and click System Update, you can slide down and see if there's any updates. You can also turn on automatic updates. I am not a... Let me preface, there is a time for certain people that automatic updates are not a terrible idea. My grandma, probably not a bad idea for her to have automatic updates because she's not going to know. My mom, me, the people, I would rather them wait so that I can make sure there's no issues or anything they need to know or learn new. I mean, iOS 13 was a huge difference, and I don't want that automatically updating. Normally when it's that big, it doesn't automatically update. But just in case, sometimes there's even a big change or a big functional change between a couple point releases. But that's one way. You can just slide down and see that. If you're talking about cellular updates, which I know something we messed with, earlier, that comes about in a more tricky fashion. So your system is supposed to. Now, if I click it on here, unless I hook up my phone, you won't see it. If I scroll down, if I was on a phone down here in the kind of Wi-Fi-ish area, you would see something that says carrier settings or carrier. And like mine would say Verizon 41.1, or you might see 41. Well, if there's a newer version, sometimes you can have weird phone issues if you don't have the latest, greatest carrier settings. And just going into general and then about is supposed to kick off that check. Now, I say supposed to because it's a computer. And that logic does not always work the way we think it should or properly. So when that happens, it might not pop up. Sometimes you have to hang out in the screen for a little while and just around, and then it might pop up and say. But that's one way to check it too. There is a way to force it. If we get into an advanced one, that'd almost be a longer video. The way you can force it by connecting it through iTunes and doing a forced update. But, sometimes if a computer's not updating properly, that's another way to do it. Nice. So a friend was having problems and did the exact same stuff we did. Now, in this case, what was going on is they were not receiving any. It's like some phones or some phones phone calls coming in were going straight to voicemail. And if that happens, there's a few things you should do. One, make sure your do not disturb is turned on, because if you're do not disturb, so if you come up here and slide down, your do not disturb, if it's set on, until tomorrow morning or until this time or for 1 hour, if it's on, well, then you're not going to get disturbed unless you have settings in here. When you go under your do not disturb on the left hand side, you can say allow calls from, I allow calls from no one. Where normally you can say, hey, your contacts, or you can put contacts in there. If you have different groups, you can make a group in your contacts and say the most important people. Like this is my emergency ones. Now this is my cell phone, this is my iPad. On my phone, you'll see where it says I have an emergency group. And that emergency group is my family. I can get calls from them. And whether it's on do not disturb or not. So that's one thing to check. The other one is to make sure they're not blocked. So if you were to go under, it won't show it on here because I don't have my phone hooked up. I should probably hook that up. If I were to go under, there might be a blocked. Like this one says blocked contacts. On a cell phone, it would say the same thing, blocked. So you want to make sure they're not blocked. If they are blocked, that's the problem. Especially if it's one contact. If it's everyone, there's a few things. You should probably restart your phone. Some people have gone so far to say in your phone settings, you should make sure announce is turned on. That's one thing you can do. Check that if you have Wi-Fi calling, which is enabled in your phone section over here on the left, which Wi-Fi calling is great. Allows you to offload if you're on the edge of a poor cellular signal. You can use a better Wi-Fi to get better phone calls and better reception. But at the same time, if your Wi-Fi is acting up and you're on the edge of that can be an issue. So you can always turn it off, or you can reboot your Wi-Fi at home. If you do all that stuff and it doesn't work, that's where those carrier settings. So you go in there and wait and see. And you can compare it up. You can call, your Verizon or AT&T and see what those are. Sometimes you can Google and see what's the latest carrier settings because people will talk about them. and see if yours is off and see if that updates. This side note, we'll talk about another hack that can happen that I want you to check out. But if it's not that, the next thing you can do, and this is more of a tech people, it's not quite a scorch the earth tech one where we're throwing everything out, but it's not necessarily, without its own, annoyances. You can go under general and go down to reset. And there's a section there where you say reset network settings. If you do that, don't do the reset all settings. You will reset all of your iPad, all of the settings. If you do the erase all content and settings, you will really wipe it out. It's like a brand new iPad. But that reset network settings will reset both cellular and Wi-Fi. And if you have an Ethernet connection for your iPad, which you can do, well, as a tech, I've done this from time to time, it will wipe out all of those settings. So you'll have to reconnect to your Wi-Fi, but if you're having a lot of cellular or network trouble, you can do that. I sometimes have to do it on a machine. I've had to do it on my iPad. I do it maybe once every few years. I tend to keep mine pretty clean, but if you move around a lot, if you fly around a lot, you might have to do that a little bit more because it wasn't intended for that. So that's one way you can do it, and then reboot. Just you better know your Wi-Fi passwords and those types of passwords before you do that, because it's going to come up. You're going to be on cellular, and if you don't know your Wi-Fi password, you're not getting back on your Wi-Fi easily. But that's one of them. So when we go beyond that, there is a little hack. So I'm going to pop this back off for a second. There is a little hack where phone hackers, or what we call, used to be called phreakers, will send you a code to dial through SMS or different ones. And it's a auto dial code that'll put *73 in front. That's a call forwarding. So if something's going straight, now if it's going straight to your voicemail, it's okay. If it's disappearing, that is one way for a hacker to assume your identity in a way. So salespeople, the company I worked for, I always had to tell them about that because they could become what we call a bad actor and say, the phone call comes and say, yeah, I work for this company and you should tell me your social security number so I can verify your policy or something like that. Well, the person on the other end didn't know that when they called the salesperson, it auto-forwarded to the bad actor because the salesperson had clicked a bad link that had *73 and then a phone number to auto-forward, and it just dialed and set it up. That's why if you see weird numbers that don't start with 1 or an area code you can always Google for a second. But that's just one trick and not likely to happen, but it's something to know. But since I will pop that up because I want people to see that. Yes, since everyone's home, a lot of your home networks, not your business sites, but your home networks are oversubscribed. They're oversubscribed from the time you sign up for it because they never expect that 90%, 100% of people are going to be home. They really build their stuff off at any given time. Their high watermark is normally 60% of their subscribers will be on at the same time. Some companies might be more of a 70% policy, but most of them are around a 60%. So they know they can oversubscribe their service by a certain percentage on top of that. So they can say, think about it, the Coliseums, the places, the concerts don't have doors that match up for every single person because not every single person is going to hit the door at the same time. They're going to trickle in and they're going to trickle out. But imagine now, if there's less doors, there's going to be congestion. But if you don't normally fill up or if you got 2-hour lead time, that's great. But if there was an emergency, everyone hits the doors. Well, right now, from an ISP, an internet service provider point of view, it's pretty much everyone's hitting the doors. Everyone's trying to hit it all at the same time. Or all of them. There's no downtimes to it. So you're up in the morning, You got to remote into work, which is more intense, VPNs. That's why cloud services are really nice, because you don't have to jump on those VPNs that are doing a little extra. We'll talk about VPNs and their secure and insecure nature in its own posting, and whether there's times when you definitely do need them and times when you don't. But there's different ways to kind of counteract that. But everyone's doing Zoom meetings for schools, for work. They're doing Teams meetings, Skypes, everything. And those eat up more. And then some people are just in between. I mean, I might be I'm not normally on a meeting and streaming in a movie at the same time, but I could be. Or my kids could be streaming a movie because they got done with their schoolwork while I'm on a meeting. And so my bandwidth and even my line is now subscribed to its 90%, and that's going on top of however many other ones in the area are doing that. So yes, those are overrun. They're not really made for that. So you are going to see a little bit more there. There are some things to kind of make that better, based on time. Think of times when you could maybe do stuff that's not the normal time. If you want to alleviate it, if you have backups that run on your computer, you can help everyone out by shifting that to like 3 a.m. when people like me are up. Stuff like that. But the other part is there's more hacking and phishing going on now with COVID. There's always a lot of hacking and phishing, especially phishing. There's always a lot of phishing. What you see on TV where people normally sit down and hack and just go, and click, 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 click. I'm into that system. Some of us can do some stuff like that. That's what we call an exploit. But most of the easiest hack is something we call social engineering. And it's just psychology. It's playing off the good nature of people or the scared nature of people. Even phishing goes off of this. If I send you a message, the invoice as a person, and make it look like it came from your CEO, it says, Jim, I need you to cut a check for $200,000 right now to send this, and I got to buy iTunes cards and ship it. I need you to do that now. It's playing on the nature that, you don't want to make the CEO angry, and you're scared. You're a knee jerk. You don't ask the question first to go, well, why would he email me if this is so urgent? And 2, what's he going to do with $200,000 worth of iTunes cards? That happens all of the time. Phishing and social engineering is the easiest hack. The person is the easiest hack. The other stuff that you see, doesn't happen in 2 minutes usually. Sometimes it does. Some of us have done it longer. No, some exploits faster. But most of the time, it takes time, and it's dumpster diving and all sorts of stuff. It takes weeks of reconnaissance and a lot of times social engineering to get in the door to do the further exploits. So there's always a level of hacking and phishing. The only downside and stuff right now is, yes, there are some more people home, so the targets are higher. So I don't know that there's more going out, but the receiving targets are more open and sitting there waiting for it. They're thinking, I've got packages coming in. I should click this FedEx link. What's this? I should click that. I'm going to these websites. They don't think to hover and check the link. So with those and that kind of nature, I don't know that there's a ton more, but the targets are more. There's more targets that are readily clicking. And that's where you just have to kind of slow down. The trick that all us security guys always tell you to do is just take a second. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Even when we test, we tell people that. I got a survey this week that was legitimate for work, but because I knew we were going to be doing a phishing test soon, I went, hey, this looks like it came from a contractor. Would we send this from a contractor? I don't know, and I had to slow down and look to verify it. Now, again, some other sad things are that some people are preying off the COVID and the stimulus check ones. So you'll see entries where it said, hey, click this for your stimulus check. Well, let's face it, the IRS doesn't email you for that stuff. They'll send you a letter. I got a letter from the government 3 weeks, 4, after I got the actual deposit saying, hey, keep an eye out, you're going to get this deposit. which is great. Already done. So already saw it, already knew it. 4 weeks, a little slow, a little too late. But they don't have your email. I mean, they have your email, but they don't sit there and rely on that. They rely on their certified mails, and they rely on that. So if you get something that says, hey, this is probably what, and you need this to get your check, your IRS right now, we're going to text you because we didn't hear on this. Well, the IRS is, one, not that efficient, and two, not going to do that way. They're going to send you a certified letter, and they're going to work that route. And then there's a lot of stuff where they just play off that COVID fear. Oh, you can only order this online, pay here. And you go, well, did I order that? I don't know. So there is more targeting that way. The phishing is just kind of played towards that right now. So again, if it sounds too good to be true, if it evokes that immediate fear, take a step back. That's kind of the way they do it from a psychology point of view. I think that kind of answers it, hopefully. If anyone else is on, or if you know anyone who also would benefit from wanting to ask some tech questions, feel free to invite them, post them here, have them ask the questions too. Love to have them as part of the chat and learn a little bit on there. Again, if you're catching this on the replay, or if you share this afterwards to your friends, and I'm talking now to the friends who are watching this possibly late into it. If you're watching this late into it, and I'm hopefully not just now telling you, you can still ask your questions. I'll answer them in the next video. I'll come back and find those questions. Don't worry. And I'll answer them. You can also post questions through our page and not on the video. If you want to remain anonymous, you can just, or to everyone else, just tell me you don't want me to mention your name or anything like that, or keep the details relatively quiet. You can message me on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, come over to us there. You can message me on YouTube and get a message through that way. And we'll still answer your questions. I might post on the video, but I'll answer your question offline too. We're always, good for that. In fact, one of the questions I had this week did come in offline, and we're going to do a way bigger episode, but that one was a lot of fun. It came from a friend of mine, and he's very geeky and techie too. In fact, we used to do a lot of work together when we did stuff with Locker Gnome and worked on a radio show together. And now he runs an amazing bed and breakfast up in Olympia, Washington. So if you're ever in that area, look up the Swantown Inn. Great place, great people who run it. Nathan and Casey, just wonderful people. And if you're watching this up there, definitely go. A weekend trip, day trip. Well, not just the day trip, but overnight trip. I wish I was up there. Would be great, to go visit. And it's just a lot of really cool place, really cool city. And the Olympic Peninsula itself is just beautiful. But he now runs this bed and breakfast and still, like I said, geeky, but wants to know about live streaming. Now that we're doing a level of live streaming and I've got gadgets all over and down and things in front of me and my command screen that if I moved up a little bit more, it would look more like I'm looking at the camera. And as we get our sets there, you'll get that feeling a little bit more of that loving eye contact. And we'll have the second camera. In fact, I almost had it up today so I could go like this. And what happened is you would have saw my face straight on in that camera, but in time and better lights. But his question was having to do more with live streaming. And for a wedding, would it be really cool to be able to stream part of a wedding and then give them the video afterwards? And how do you do that? And with which software? Sling Studio and some of the others. And I have the opinion Sling Studio looks really cool. It's $1,000. I would love to have one. Switcher Studio is a really cool one. It works all off iPhones and ties it all together. You kind of need a producer, but the cost is just a little high and tough to get into at first. Not that it's not worth every penny. And my problem with Sling Studio, the only one with it, is that it was primarily wireless in some of my reviews. I don't always trust things are 100% wireless all the time. I like the capability to go back and forth. That's one of my problems with the Mevo system, is the Mevo stays in there. They don't have something called NDI, which is when you can send your signal over the, not over the internet, but over your network. I think it stands for, and I have to look up, network device interface. But it allows you to then bring it in. I have one for my iPhone where I can make that the camera for here wirelessly, but I can also plug it in and it sends that signal because it's a network device. It can be wired or wireless. Well, the Mevo only had, at the time, the capability to go to their system and not other ones with NDI. They've since come out with another one that does have NDI and can be wired. That's useful because there's times where the Mevo would overheat and die when we were first helping with wine styles. A friend had it. And then he had his Sling Studio, which I never got to play with as much, but I checked its reviews. And same type of thing where it's so much stuff is wireless, it's all self-contained, very cool, but just kind of expensive for what I did and where I'm at. So when it came to things like that, I like two pieces of software. If you're a PC person, I would look at vMix. You'll see something else called OBS, which is the Open Broadcasting System. And that one's just very hard to learn. It's nothing bad about it. People love it. It's just very hard to learn. vMix has a little bit more power. There's some, not more power, it's a little bit easier to learn. Does a few things for you easier on the back end, so you don't have to be a broadcast expert on day one. On the Mac side, I like something called eCam. E-C-A-M-M. The twin brothers that developed that, amazing people. All their people are really nice, and they just really help out. And they built a lot of functionality, and they're constantly doing it. I've sent some suggestions to them, and they've said, yeah, that's awesome. Let's build that in, or we're working on that already. That sounds great. And your idea and your take on this, they're very active with their people without breaking the bank, too. But there's different parts you got to take into effect. Videography, from a photography point of view, isn't the same. You can bump your ISO and how sensitive your sensor is easier in a camera because it does the filter, and you can control your shutter speed a little bit more. Well, we're doing so many shutters per second because it's video. We're 60 frames per second. You're not normally holding down the camera that often. Your aperture. Like right now, we're using a smaller camera, but if I hook up my Canon, I'll be able to control my aperture, which allows me to blur some of the background a little bit more, allows me to do a few more things. And as we expand the system out, but having the capability to wire that in versus just wireless is important because at a wedding, you can't fail. On this one, I can fail. If the feed goes offline like it did the other day, for a second I was able to bring it back. I just have to fix some video stuff before we go online. That's why I'm editing the second video. It's not the end of the world. I'm not ruining someone's big day. If I'm a photographer or running VR on something like that, hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime event, it cannot fail. So that's why I like things that can be wired and or wireless with both, so you have the options. So my suggestion to it was, vMix or eCam. Maybe make some mounts for those cameras and mount a couple that you can get some angles that you don't have to move them around. Get some smaller cameras, that's fine. Get some Sony video cams. They're built for broadcasting. There's a few of them out there. You can find a playlist for it, but they have HDMI out. You can bring it into a switcher. If they're Canons, make sure you get the power on them, because they'll power out. But they can connect via USB into some of these now with the new update. But video cameras, you can bring them into a HDMI switcher. You control them there, like the Atom or Atom Pro by Blackmagic. There's other ones, Roland. They have some. It gets a little bit more expensive there, but you can move things in and out and turn them off and toggle them. But with something like eCam or vMix, you can have those feeds come in, USB, HDMI, capture cards. But if you have the camera up and it's wired, you know that those feeds will always pretty much work. And then you can have another camera that whether they make NDI devices you can put right on there and stream it either wirelessly or you can plug a cable in, which if you had to run down the middle of the aisle with a cable, it's not the end of the world because they'd much rather have the info than not. But the other thing you could do is if your wireless went out on your NDI, you just move to another camera. So that's where you can have those, 2, 3. You can do it with GoPros now. If you have a GoPro in the other, but really at a certain point, you can just buy even Sony action cams are pretty good. They have HDMI on. You can just bring those in and power them up and they'll just run. If you're really smart, you put a switch up there, and if you have an angle from above and one down here, you can put one behind the altar type area and catch their view. You don't even have to necessarily be there with the camera. You could be in the back dialing away hidden buttons like I do to switch between cameras, like switch to that lens and then switch to this one, switch over here, show something full screen, come back over here. You could be back in the room doing that. So that's why for him, and that was my suggestion, was to look at something along those lines, especially from a business point of view. You can still have the Sling Studio, maybe expand that in and see how you can bring those in if you need extra feeds or kind of for those remote feeds, bring that, because you could feed that into it. You can have an output from that into your mixer, or you can do the other way around where you do titles and stuff in one and bring it through because you're building that live for the most part. So that was one of the suggestions. When it comes to live streaming, though, you don't need a ton of equipment from that point of view. For the wedding one, probably a little bit more. You can build it up, start with a little, go from there. The nice thing is you can feed in recorded video, for after. It's the people at home won't get to see it, but if you're making them something afterwards, you can bring in a Final Cut, Premiere Pro, and cut footage in. Or, like you're saying, you just take it and then take it back. The nice thing is you can start replaying their reception, parts at their reception. You can catch some of the reception, make that an add-on video afterwards. Let that be the one that if it fails, it's not the end of the world because you're just doing it for fun. But when it comes to live streaming, you can do it with minimal equipment. If you start with a laptop, you have a webcam, which you're not gonna, I'm pointing it low because I'm not using a webcam. I'm using a different thing. The webcam, especially on these, aren't normally high quality because they don't put a whole lot into it. You're almost better off using a phone or an iPhone and connecting that because, let's face it, Apple, Android, all those, or Apple, Google, LG, Samsung, put more money into the mobile cameras and iPhone or the mobile device cameras than they do laptop cameras because that's what people are photographing with now. So you're better off using one of those and you can connect it up and make that your webcam. You could take one step and for $99 or heck, for $60 you can get a webcam that works pretty good. You can go one step up to the Logitech LX or L920, I think is what it is. Really nice HD camera. Plug it in, you've got better video. You can go to a GoPro. If you go with the 8, you got to put the media mod on there. If you have the 7 and below, you just have to have the HDMI micro connector. There's mini, micro, and all those. And then you have to have a capture card when you do that. If you have a Sony with some of them, you can do just USB. Canon. So if you have Canon cameras, they came out with a new piece of software to turn into a webcam. So pretty much any Canon camera, you can connect USB and make it a smart device, and bring that in. You can start with your built-in microphone. I had it on for a little bit yesterday because my microphone wasn't, I didn't notice it didn't go proper red. Well, or you can go and get a Blue Yeti. I could show you, and turn around, but we'll do that on another day. I got a Blue Yeti, and that brings in pretty good audio, and you can go farther and do an XLR and into a sound mixer board. But to get started, just a little USB, microphone works really well. You can move to a lapel. That's one of my next ones. Is maybe this Ceramonic lapel ones. I have a lapel, but that one's a little bit better and better sound for the audio engineer in me. Start with overhead lights. If you go back to old videos, I just had the lights on in here and nothing in the background. And then eventually I added the color. I can change those around. If I moved away from it, you'd see even more. I'm spilling some light on because we did this quick. But now we have video LED lights. And at the end of this week, maybe next week, we'll have soft boxes on there. And so you can start small and kind of build your way up. And it's just important if you're going to do live streaming to just go live. Just go on and do it. I made the excuse for a long time not to. And I said, hey, my glitch show is coming. And that was over a year ago. And now it is. Like I said, I did stuff with TV and with radio for a long time. And when I had all those followers, they wanted me to do it. I waited long enough that I don't know where they are now. If you are out there, come back. I'm starting the show. But, all in time. But that just answered, Nathan had those kind of questions. And we kind of gave him a little bit of that answer. I think a more in-depth show can go over all types of live streaming. And obviously, if he has more questions, if he's watching or going to watch, he can post those to me and do it or catch the next one and ask more. I'm always happy to help. But I hope everyone was having a good time tonight. I didn't ramble too much. Obviously, it's an hour, so I rambled a bit. I do want to remind people, I'm going to post this over, that you can subscribe to us on YouTube. Click that QR code. That'll help get you there if you're on our Facebook page. Otherwise, you can follow us on Facebook just by going to Glitch 2600 and follow us there. Otherwise, you can come to us for our happy hours. Our happy hours, we'll cover all different craft beers for fun. I'll just show you a little sneak peek. We have the craft beer kids. I always like to bring them around. They are 21. They turned recently. And we put them in different areas. I have newer photos that I'll eventually pop up. And then we talk about stuff on our Untapped, which you can follow there. And that's just a fun virtual happy hour. If there are times and days that work better for you guys, also feel free to comment. Instead, we've talked about switching to Sundays and doing some of our stuff Sundays and happy hours later that night. As things open back up a bit, is that better for you guys? So days and times we're just trying to help. And that out there. Again, share to your friends if they do have questions. We will have more in-depth episodes. This is still just our Q&A tech ones. Like I mentioned, those glitch bits and bytes are coming. We have the first one out there for the League of Legends, and we have a second one there. And those will up in quality over time. And then, like I said, the happy hours. That's a good time to talk about, beer, wine, and other fun things. But you can still ask your tech questions. You can ask other questions. I have guest co-hosts on there. Not guest. One's a continuous co-host. But you never know. Maybe we'll bring someone else. Maybe we can get certain wineries and breweries and meaderies on there. We already talked with one. They were more than happy. I kind of thought before I bring them on, I should probably have a few more subscribers, but we'll probably have them over at the Wine Styles one at some point, or Beer Styles. And we talk about that on the show. I don't want to too much about it on our tech one, but that's where you can come and subscribe. Thanks again for joining. If no one has any more questions, we're going to go ahead. It's been an hour. We're going to wrap it up. It's going to be a cut. And thanks for joining. We'll hopefully catch you here soon. Again, please tell your friends. See you later.